this is Tanya Williams, and you're tuned into Our Eye on America.
This is Attorney Ken Harris, and you're tuned in to Our Eye on America. Welcome to Our Eye on America. This is our first episode. So excited to have an opportunity to present information to our community, the African American community across the country. We will be discussing issues and topics related to politics, entertainment, sports, and other issues that are relevant to our community. We'll be trying to tackle some of the most significant issues across our country because we believe that it is important to show our view concerning these issues nationally. And we're starting off today with a very exciting topic. We are going to be talking today about our man, Dr. Ben Carson. And it is going to be an interesting conversation. Dr. Ben Carson, as you know, Tanya, is one of the top candidates on the Republican side for the presidential nomination. And he's someone that causes a lot of anxiety in the African American community. Some folks want to support him, obviously, because he is a black candidate. Some people are trying to reconcile the fact that we had President Obama. Is this a reincarnation? Is this someone that we should get behind? And then others know some things about Ben Carson that are concerning. So very interesting. It's Tanya Williams, and glad to have you here today. And we're going to explore Dr. Ben Carson today.
All right, let's get started.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about Ben? You know, we know that he is just an outstanding African American from a historical standpoint. One of the top neurosurgeons, if not the top neurosurgeon in the history of the United States. So one of the few neurosurgeons to separate conjoined twins and also develop the process by which we use brain surgery to address seizures. So he is an absolutely astonishing neurosurgeon. Tanya, it's hard to draw a distinction, though, between his accomplishments as a doctor and a politician, but it's something I think we have to do.
No, absolutely. Notwithstanding all of his background and qualifications as a physician, my concern would be, because he is so eloquent when it comes to being a physician in the medical community, does that necessarily mean that the black community is going to stand behind him, that he's qualified to be a candidate for the presidency of the United States? Now, he's very capable, but capability doesn't always mean that he's well qualified.
Well, you know, President Obama, we all say, is one of the most intelligent individuals we've ever seen. And Dr. Ben Carson, we have to put in that category in terms of just raw brain power. This is a man who is historically intelligent, but I have some concerns about his character. I'm going to start there. Dr. Ben Carson has mentioned in a couple of articles and a couple of stories that he was accepted, offered a scholarship to a military academy. And there's some questions about whether or not he actually received a scholarship offer. Now, of course, this is a gentleman who was accepted into Yale, so he can get into any college he wants to.
Absolutely.
But just the idea that he suggested that he received a scholarship from a military academy, and it seems that that may not be an accurate story, causes some concerns. And then, you know, Tanya, there was that other story about him stabbing, I think, a classmate or a relative as a child, and there's some questions about whether or not that story is actually working out.
So it's all of those things that you bring up. For someone who really doesn't know much about Dr. Carson, it brings into question his credibility. And for someone who's going to run for the presidency, I'm not sure if he's the one, if a call came in the middle of the night, if he'd be the one I'd want to answer that call.
I mean, we talk about character all the time. President Obama has character in spades. Now, one other issue, this is how the character issue affects maybe a presidential candidate. He has indicated recently, Dr. Carson has said publicly, that China is on the ground in Syria. And, you know, the White House scoffed at that issue and that statement, and We're all hard pressed to find out how China is on the ground involved in the Syrian conflict in the Middle East. So, that concerns me when you say things and they don't necessarily work out from a truth standpoint, but then you're unwilling to back off of the statements. In fact, Dr. Carson said publicly that, the Chinese are not only on the ground in Syria, but he had some super extra intelligence that his organization had received that indicated the Chinese were on the ground. Does that concern you? I mean, we always want our presidents to be, of the highest character, but we also want them to tell the American people the truth when we're in a crisis.
That's true. I mean, that's very, very important. But here's the thing. This is what I enjoy that we've always done that gives me a comfort level, and that is we have always vetted our potential presidential candidates. There is a process by which, we look to see, are they qualified from a military perspective to really handle those issues that pop up at any time. Dr. Carson, not quite sure he's coming with those things that we need to feel comfortable.
It's interesting you talk about the vetting issue, because the way we vetted presidential candidates in the past is that they've held public office. So these gentlemen are running for president. They've been senators, they've been governors, they've been state senators. And so through that process, we're able to see how they respond to a crisis, how they handle political confrontation, how they deal with their peers in politics, how they treasure the American people, and how they carry themselves from a credibility and character standpoint. Dr. Ben Carson and Donald Trump have not held public office in the past. So we have to say from that aspect, don't you think, that they're unknown quantities. They haven't been vetted through the political process like so many of our presidents in the past.
Now, there may be a lot of people who agree or disagree with the statement I'm going to make, but I would put Dr. Carson, just from a capability or qualification perspective, in the same vein that I would a Donald Trump. And there's a whole lot of conversations going on about his turning this candidacy into a circus, but not from the perspective that he's not capable, because he does come with a whole lot of capabilities, but is he really qualified? I know as an African American, I personally wouldn't vote for Dr. Carson.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I look at a presidential candidate, what I always want to look for is what they're giving me in terms of details and facts.
Yes.
So when the question is asked, hey, what is your perspective on foreign affairs? How do you view the Syrian conflict? I want details and facts. Donald Trump and Ben Carson seem to have developed a talent for sidestepping those questions and not providing details. That's not to say that they aren't very intelligent individuals.
Sure.
I just want you to tell me, when you're asked about Syria or Iraq or Russia, I want you to tell me exactly how you're going to handle those issues and those dynamics. And you just don't get a lot back from either one of them when they're asked about foreign affairs.
That is true. And I know fans of Dr. Carson would say that Hillary Clinton comes with a bit of apprehension from them as well. Is she the one that would be the perfect person to pick up that phone in the middle of the night?
Yeah, well, but let's look at it. Hillary Clinton just served as Secretary of State. She is very attuned to foreign affairs issues. In fact, not only attuned to those issues, she participated in managing those issues. So we know that she is equipped, at least from an intellectual standpoint or a knowledge standpoint, to manage those issues. What capabilities or credentials does a Ben Carson carry into a foreign policy discussion that would give you any comfort that he can handle those issues?
Wouldn't give me a lot of comfort now. If I needed an operation or brain surgery, he would be my top choice.
Yeah.
But for this particular role in leading our country, I don't have that confidence.
Well, and I think therein lies the big issue. If you're talking about the question of whether or not he is an historic American, this is a gentleman who has won the Medal of Freedom, the highest award given to a civilian in the United States. This is a gentleman who is extremely accomplished as a physician, who has done a great deal of charitable work throughout the country. He is a remarkable African American. And so in that aspect, I would say, just a very, very accomplished individual and respect him greatly, and he is historic. But that's a separate question
Sure.
from whether or not he should be our president. And I would say to the African American community out there, hey, maybe you better take a close look, because I don't know whether or not he carries the underlying credentials to be a great presidential candidate, and I certainly would not compare him favorably to President Obama.
No, I agree with you, and that's the one thing that I will say to the African American community is do your research.
Right.
You know, we have our opinions and we're sharing them with you all, but get out there and really research. Find out about his background, his accomplishments, and see if this is someone that you would nominate as a presidential candidate.
Exactly, and I would also say to the African American community, challenge him to give you answers.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
when he's asked about a foreign policy issue, well, he needs to give an answer, a detailed answer. When he's asked about a domestic policy issue, he needs to give an answer. So at the end of every show, of course, we give our thumbs up or thumbs down, and I know that everybody will have a different perspective about, our opinions. But, on Dr. Ben Carson, Tanya, I'll give you the first shot at it. Are you giving him a thumbs up or a thumbs down as a presidential candidate?
What I will say is capability is different from qualification. So for me, I'd have to give Dr. Carson a thumbs down.
All right, and now to me, I have to say the same thing. I'm going to give him a thumbs down as a presidential candidate, but a big thumbs up as a historic African American. And that is it for today's first show, Our Eye on America, all about you out there in the national African American community. I want to thank Vision Radio for being a sponsor, also Ken Harris and Associates. And I want to thank all of the people out there who listen to and watch the show. We want you to post your comments here and let us know what you think about these issues. But for today, Our Eye on America gives Dr. Ben Carson 2 thumbs down as a presidential candidate.